Anybody don't like it, come see the king, and we're going to start with 50. A leaked security footage just exposed Jim Jones and T.I. allegedly pulling up on 50 Cent backstage at a concert after weeks of slick shots and tension. Yeah, I just seen The Breakfast Club. Jimmy popping on. 50's interviews already showed he don't fold, but nobody thought it would heat up like this. Let's break it down. The roots of war, the story of 50 Cent, Jim Jones, and Ty is not a story about a backstage brawl. It's a story about three men who've spent nearly 2 decades going back and forth, sometimes with bars, sometimes with memes, sometimes with business moves, but never with fists. And to understand why this beef has lasted so long, you have to go back to where it all started. In the mid-2000s, New York hip-hop had 2 crews fighting for the throne. On one side, you had Gunit led by 50 Cent. On the other, you had Dipset with Cameron at the front and Jim Jones right beside him. And the tension between these 2 camps was about dominance. Who ran New York? Who moved more units? Who had more streets behind them? 50 Cent took shots at Cameron over Dipset's deal with Co Records, calling them irrelevant. Jim Jones wasn't directly in the crosshairs yet, but the atmosphere between the camps was hostile, and everybody on both sides felt it. Then came 2007, and 50 Cent did something that changed everything. During his active beef with Cameron, 50 brought Jim Jones and Jules Santana, Cameron's own Dipset brothers, on stage at one of his concerts as surprise guests. This wasn't a peace offering. This was a chess move. 50 later admitted the whole thing was intentional. He wanted to destabilize Dipset from the inside. He wanted Cameron to look at his own crew and wonder who he could trust, and it worked. The internal damage to Dipset was real. Jones downplayed it at the time, but years later, he called it devious. Jim Jones himself spoke about this moment in an interview recounting how 50 exploited Dipset's internal problems. Interview with 50. For the younger audience, we had like a rap battle thing at one time. Jones was laying out the context that while they were having issues inside the group, nobody on the outside knew about it. But 50 Cent saw the cracks and exploited them. 50, what you did? So, we was having interior problems at Dipset. Nobody knew about this. And then the key admission that 50 actually got Dipset members to cross the line and show up on his side during the beef. Nobody knew that we was like not on the same page. So when me and you were battling during our music thing, you got members of Dipset to come to the show. That moment in 2007 planted a seed that never stopped growing. It told the world that 50 Cent didn't just want to win beefs, he wanted to dismantle crews from the inside. And Jim Jones never forgot it. Now, while all of this was happening in New York, another beef was brewing hundreds of miles south. Between 2004 and 2007, 50 Cent took aim at T.Y. over his federal gun charges. 50 questioned T.Y.'s toughness, implying that his plea deal meant he got off easy. He even put it in a lyric, "You so tough," making it clear he didn't respect how T.I. handled his legal situation. Ty didn't fire back immediately. He stayed quiet, but the disrespect was logged, and it sat there for years. So by the end of the 2000s, the 50 Cent had active tension on 2 fronts. With Jim Jones, it was about loyalty, betrayal, and crew politics. With T.I., it was about street credibility and respect. Both beefs were born from the competitive, ego-driven culture of mid-2000s hip-hop. And both would simmer for over a decade before boiling over again. The important thing to understand is this: none of it was physical. Not then, not now. The title of this video suggests Jim Jones and T.I. jumped 50 Cent backstage. That didn't happen. But what did happen? The verbal warfare, the mind games, the public humiliation attempts, tells a story that's just as intense. And it only got messier from here. The snitching saga and the Jim Wars. After the 2007 onstage incident, the beef between 50 Cent and Jim Jones didn't die. it just went underground for a while. Both men moved on to other projects, other headlines, other controversies. But the resentment was still there, buried under years of silence, and waiting for the right moment to resurface. And when it did, it came back in a way nobody expected through a federal courtroom and a set of gym selfies. Around 2017 and 2018, Jim Jones decided to poke the bear. He posted a workout video on social media challenging 50 Cent to a gym competition. Now, this might sound trivial, two rappers flexing about who lifts more. But in the world of hip-hop beefs, everything is a proxy war. The gym challenge wasn't really about fitness, it was about dominance. Jones was saying, "I'm still here. I'm still strong and I'm not afraid of you." 50 dismissed the whole thing with his own posts, mocking Jones and calling him out. Jones then upped the stakes, suggesting they settle it with a boxing match, but that never materialized. The whole exchange fizzled into online back and forth, and for a brief window, both men described their relationship as great in interviews, but anyone paying attention knew that was a surface-level truce at best, and the underlying friction hadn't gone anywhere. Then 2019 arrived, and with it came the single most combustible element to enter this beef, Tekashi 6699's RICO trial. Both 50 Cent and Jim Jones had connections to the rainbow-haired rapper. During the trial, 6699 took the stand and testified that Jim Jones was a retired rapper who was affiliated with the 9 Trey Gangster Bloods. That alone was damaging enough. Having your street credentials laid out and picked apart in a federal courtroom is a nightmare for any rapper who built their image on authenticity. But it got worse. A wiretapped phone call surfaced during the proceedings where Jones appeared to discuss violating 609 language that prosecutors and observers interpreted as authorizing physical harm against him. Now 50 Cent is many things, but one thing he has never been is someone who lets an opportunity for trolling pass him by. He pounced. He resurfaced the transcript of that wiretapped call all over social media, tagging Jones and implying that he was cooperating with authorities. The accusation of snitching is the nuclear weapon in hip-hop beef. Nothing destroys credibility faster, and 50 wielded it with surgical precision, posting screenshots, commentary, and jokes at Jones's expense. Jones denied all of it. He denied cooperating with the feds and accused 50 of being the real supporter of rats, a reference to 50's well-known and somewhat ironic public friendship with the 699, who famously testified against his own gang members. It was a clever counter, but the damage was done. The snitching narrative stuck to Jones in a way that was hard to shake off, and 50 made sure to bring it up every chance he got. This is what made the 50 Jones beef different from a typical rap rivalry. It wasn't just about music or clout. It had a gangster credibility angle that touched on real legal proceedings, real federal investigations, and real consequences. But even with all of that tension, even with accusations of snitching and gang affiliation flying back and forth, there was no physical fallout. No fights, no assaults, no backstage confrontations, just words, posts, and an endless cycle of trolling. Into the early 2020s, the beef continued to simmer in its petty digital form. Jones claimed that Dipset pioneered the mixtape game over Gannett, and 50 called him a liar. When a viral video surfaced of Jones getting into an airport fight completely unrelated to 50 was right there in the comments mocking him. Every stumble Jones took in public became content for 50's Instagram feed. Every embarrassing moment became ammunition. And through all of this, Jim Jones kept responding. He never backed down, never went silent, and never stopped firing shots of his own. But the dynamic was clear. 50 was the instigator, the troller, not the one who set the terms of engagement. And Jones was stuck reacting, always one step behind, always trying to match 50's relentless energy on social media. Meanwhile, on the T.I. front, things had gone relatively quiet during the same period. After the initial shots in the mid-2000s, T.I. and 50 had largely avoided each other. But that silence was about to end in spectacular fashion because T.I. had his own challenge in mind. One that 50C wanted absolutely nothing to do with the Versus challenge and the King's frustration. If the 50C and Jim Jones beef was defined by snitching accusations and property disputes, then the 50C and T.I. beef was defined by one word, verse. For those unfamiliar, Versus was a battle series created during the pandemic era where two artists would go head-to-head, playing their biggest hits for a live audience to decide who had the better catalog. It became a cultural phenomenon. Legends went against legends, and T.I. wanted his shot at 50 Cent. Between 2020 and 2021, T.I. publicly challenged 50 Cent to a Versus battle multiple times. He did it in interviews. He did it on social media. He made it clear to anyone who would listen that he believed he could go bar for bar, hit for hit with one of the biggest names in rap history. And 50 Cent's response? He declined respectfully at first, saying T.I. simply wasn't on his level. But the refusal itself became its own source of fuel for the fire. Ty claimed the two of them had privately agreed to do the battle, but that 50 backed out publicly. Whether that's true or not depends on who you believe, but the perception was devastating for Ty. It looked like 50 Cent didn't take him seriously enough to even show up. And for a man who calls himself the King of the South, that kind of dismissal cuts deep. T's frustration with 50's refusal was boiling over. He made no effort to hide it. In one passionate moment, he laid out exactly what he wanted. I celebrate you. Yes, sir. But if you get a chance, you hear me? You hear me? Kill. If you get a chance. Yes, sir. Even while acknowledging 50's legacy, T.I. was making it clear that celebration and competition aren't mutually exclusive. He respected the man, but wanted the smoke. Please tell 50 to bring his on out here and get this smoke. Please tell 50 Cent get his hit records and come on. And that line was direct. No metaphors, no coded language. Bring your records, come sit down. Let the music do the talking. See all four. I want him to see what the South got to say. And this is where I shifted the narrative from personal beef to something bigger, a regional war. This wasn't just about him versus 50. This was about the South versus New York. He made himself the ambassador of an entire region's frustration. Now listen. Hey, I'm the king below the Mason-Dixie line, king of the South. I speak for all of the Southern people. T.I. was positioning himself not just as a rapper with a grievance, but as a representative of every Southern artist who ever felt looked down on by New York. The weight of that claim, king of the South, speaking for all of the Southern people, elevated the stakes beyond a simple Versus challenge. He then addressed the perceived disrespect from New York towards Southern hip-hop. New York been saying under their breath about us and having little bull-slick comments about us, thinking it's all slow down here, but they want to come down here and go to our malls. The hypocrisy he was pointing to was sharp. New York artists enjoying Southern hospitality, Southern clubs, Southern culture while simultaneously treating the region as inferior. That resentment had been building across Southern hip-hop for years, and I was channeling all of it into this one moment. Go to our clubs, but then they want to kick it like we substandard when they get back up top. And then the definitive statement, I wasn't asking anymore. He was declaring, so, anybody don't like it, come see the king, and we're going to start with 50. And if he don't want to do it, then we're going to go pick somebody else. That line told the world everything. 50 was the first target. And if 50 wouldn't step up, I would simply move on to the next. The challenge was standing whether 50 acknowledged it or not. But 50 Cent never answered it the way T.I. wanted. He didn't pick up the phone. He didn't book the venue. He didn't pull up with 20 records. And that refusal, that silence became the foundation for everything that followed in early 2026. 2026, the year everything exploded. If the previous decade was the slow burn, early 2026 was the gasoline. Both beefs, 50 versus Jim Jones and 50 versus T.I., erupted simultaneously, creating one of the most chaotic stretches in recent hip-hop history. And while neither conflict turned physical, the sheer volume and intensity of the attacks made it feel like war. Let's start with Jim Jones. In December 2025, Jones went on his podcast and called 50 Cent's Netflix documentary about Diddy a mockumentary. That was the trigger. Whatever fragile truce existed between the two men shattered instantly. 50 Cent responded not with words, but with actions, the kind of cold, calculated, business-oriented warfare that only he could pull off. 50 leaked audio from Jim Jones's landlord, alleging that Jones had failed to pay rent on his Bronx podcast studio. Then 50 claimed he had partial ownership or involvement in the property. And then came the footage. Surveillance video showing Jim Jones kicking at the door of the studio, apparently trying to force his way in after the locks had been changed. Now, to be absolutely clear about what this footage actually shows, it's Jones alone, frustrated, kicking at a door. It's not an attack on 50 Cent. It's not a backstage assault. It's not jumping anyone. It's a man trying to get into a building he believed he still had a right to access. But 50 Cent framed it as an eviction spectacle, and the internet ran with it. 50 posted the video and related documents on Instagram. He hugged the landlord and photos for extra pettiness. He turned someone else's property dispute into content, and the internet exploded. Jones responded by paying the rent and trolling back with memes, denying any eviction had taken place. He went on The Breakfast Club and talked his talk, and 50 watched the interview and fired right back. Yeah, I just seen The Breakfast Club. Jimmy popping all that. I be seeing Jimmy talking about 50 wasn't even bothered. He treated the whole thing like entertainment, because for him it was we Gucci boo. He in the Gucci store, we Gucci boo. That line, we Gucci boo, became its own meme. 50 was letting Jones know that nothing he said on The Breakfast Club moved the needle. The power dynamic was clear. 50 was laughing, and Jones was explaining. Into early 2026, 50 continued mocking Jones's finances and his associates, including Mino and Fabulous. Jones previewed potential diss tracks but never dropped any. And in a twist that made the situation even more painful for Jones, Cameron, his former Dipset brother, sided with 50 Cent, even performing together. In the same playbook from 2007 was running again. 50 was pulling people away from Jones' camp, isolating him, making him look alone. Now, while 50 was dismantling Jim Jones' public image piece by piece, T.I. was launching his own offensive, and this one had real firepower. In early 2026, T.I. revived the Versus conversation in interviews, saying he lacked respect for 50's character. That was already a provocative statement, but 50 escalated immediately by posting an unflattering photo of T's wife, Tiny, with a caption telling Ty to keep his name out of his mouth. Bringing someone's spouse into a rap beef is a line most people won't cross. 50 crossed it without hesitation, and T.I. snapped. On February 22nd, 2023, 2026, T.I. released a barrage of diss tracks. First came War, an ambiguous but aggressive track that signaled what was coming. Then came the right one, What Bullying Lessons. These weren't casual disses, they were surgical. T called 50 a bully. He referenced 50's past losses, specifically the beefs with Rick Ross and Fat Joe. He listed rappers who he believed could beat 50 and Avera's names like Nas and LL Cool J. And then Ty's family got involved. His son, King Harris, posted videos attacking 50, referencing 50 Cent's dead mother, and posting tombstone images. Another son, Demony, dropped a more measured but equally devastating diss track breaking down 50's public persona. 50 Cent's response to all of this: memes, frog emojis, trolling videos mocking Tiny, and a Nobel Beef Prize comedy skit at a nightclub joking about the sheer number of beefs he was managing simultaneously. He said publicly that he would not record diss tracks aimed at Ty. No bars, no verses, just laughter. And that was perhaps the most devastating move of all, to refuse to take T.I. seriously as a musical adversary. Even as T.I. poured everything he had into the attack, the truth behind the feud. Here's the crazy part about rap beef. It rarely starts with something huge. Most of the time, it's a slick comment in an interview, a bar that felt a little too personal, a post, a repost, a laugh emoji at the wrong time. In hip-hop, respect is currency. One line can feel like disrespect. One joke can feel like betrayal. And when pride, money, and legacy are involved, small sparks turn into wildfires fast. What fans see as just words can mean way more behind the scenes. Rappers move with crews, reputations, and years of history attached. So, when tension starts brewing, it's never really about just one moment. It's about everything that came before it. That's how feuds escalate. Quiet shots, public reactions. Then suddenly, it's not music anymore. It's personal. And once it turns personal, there's no easy reset button. Every response has to be louder. Every move has to prove a point. Social media amplifies it. Blogs feed it. Fans pick sides. And now pride won't let anybody back down. Sometimes it's competition. Sometimes it's clout. Sometimes it's old grudges that never healed. But the pattern stays the same. A tiny crack in respect becomes a headline, then a disc, then a confrontation. One footage that sometimes gets recycled in these conversations is from 2007, when Jim Jones appeared on stage with 50 Cent during the Cameron beef. Those clips show an awkward interaction between former rivals, not a physical confrontation. They've been floating around the internet for almost 20 years, getting recontextualized and reshared every time the beef flares up again. What has happened between Jim Jones, Ty, and 50 Cent is a common incident in the rap world. These are three men who've been circling each other for the better part of 2 decades. 50 Cent has maintained his position at the center of hip-hop's beef universe by mastering the art of provocation. He doesn't need to throw punches. He throws Instagram posts, leaked documents, unflattering photos, and memes. And somehow those weapons do more damage than fists ever could. Jim Jones has spent years trying to match that energy and consistently coming up short. Not because he lacks talent or toughness, but because 50 has turned pettiness into a business model. Every response from Jones becomes fuel for 50's content machine. The Breakfast Club interview content, the door-kicking footage content, the rent dispute content. Jones can't win because the game isn't played on his terms. T.I.'s approach has been different. He went nuclear. 4 diss tracks in 2 days. Family members joining the assault. Direct attacks on 50's legacy and character. He brought everything he had. And 50's response was to laugh, to post frog emojis, to refuse to record a single bar in response. That refusal to engage at the musical level was paradoxically the most disrespectful thing 50 could do. It said, "You're not worth my studio time." T.I. even acknowledged in a separate conversation that his relationship with 50 wasn't purely hostile. He mentioned working together as executive producers on a show outside the Power universe and described the dynamic in surprisingly candid terms. That admission that they'd worked together professionally adds another layer to this whole saga. These aren't two men who exist in completely separate worlds. They orbit each other. They collide, pull apart, time and collide again. Me and 50 cool. I'm the only one who's not offended by his brass approach, and he's not offended by mine. That one sentence might be the most honest summary of this entire beef. Two men who play rough, but ultimately know where they stand with each other. So, while most headlines are talking about backstage jumping, these are just 3 rappers doing what rappers have always done, competing, provoking, and performing their rivalries for the world to watch. But the beef is very real. And if history is any guide, it's far from over. Because when egos, history, and street reputations collide, it rarely ends with just words. So here's the real question. If this feud keeps brewing, how far could it really go? Let me know what you think in the comments. For more videos like this, click on this next card on your